this presentation, I'm going to talk about the findings from a two-phase Praxis-funded project carried out by 6 members of the Carer Research Group, and it was co-led by myself and Chris Kubiak, and the names of the other people are on this slide. And we carried out the study in order to strengthen existing guidelines and support for the growing number of students who are carers in the OU. Both studies were qualitative and they adopted the same methods. That is, that we did telephone interviews with students that were then transcribed and thematically analysed. The difference was that in the first study, the students were just based in the School of Health, Wellbeing and Social Care, and the second study involved students from across the university. But before I go on to tell you about this work, I just need to clarify what we mean by the term carer and do some context setting. So I'm just hoping this moves on. Oh, how do I move? I need to move the slide. How do I move it?
Susie, could you operate the slide,
if you just
please?
click, it should go on to the next page. I can do it for you, or you can do it yourself. It's up to you.
So what do I click on?
Just click, if you just click anything.
Okay, right, let's try it again. Okay, so as you can see from here, the official definition of a carer is anyone who cares unpaid for a friend or family member who, due to illness, disability, a mental health problem or addiction, can't cope without their support. And as the next slide shows, sorry, it should go back. Can we go back? Yeah, that's fine. There's an ever-increasing demand for carers. There's a few stats here to illustrate that between 2001 and 2019, the percentage of the population who are carers went from 2% to 15%. In fact, it's estimated now that 26% of the population are carers, and that 60% of us will be carers at some point in our lives, and more people will care more than once in their life or be a sandwich carer. But as the next slide shows, although the carers often find caring rewarding and perhaps wouldn't not do it, they are disadvantaged by caring quite significantly in that it affects their health. 71% of them have poor physical mental health, affects their finances, leads to them living in poverty, affects young carers' attainment, and it can have impact on whether people can work or not. A lot of carers actually end up giving up work, and 8 out of 10 carers feel lonely or socially isolated as a result of their caring role. So now to the project itself. In the OU, we currently have 6,000 students who have declared caring status, and the number of students with caring responsibilities will increase. And carers are now seen as a priority group within higher education, and there's increased concern with extending support to carers. And we've had a number of significant developments in carer support in the OU. We've now got a carer strategy, and on this link, which I haven't got time to click into because the system's so slow, but it sets out all the sort of support that we now have for carers, including employability support, financial support in terms of bursaries and scholarships, induction, and support by trained SST staff. But despite the predicted increase in their prioritisation, there's a little research about supporting student carers generally and within the OU, and the strategies to address their needs remain underdeveloped. So we carried out this study to contribute to the body of knowledge and also to improve support for student carers within the OU. And as this slide shows, we had 5 themes that emerged from across the 2 studies. I'm going to speak to each one. The first one, as you can see, is studying and caring motivations and meanings. And overall, we found that the carers we interviewed were highly motivated to study and very committed to their learning, but there was considerable variation in their motivation. Some wanted to do it for interest and enjoyment, to provide a break from caring. Others wanted to develop another side of themselves, and saw it as a vehicle for self-development. Others wanted to fulfil ambitions, perhaps long-standing ambitions to study, particularly if they hadn't studied before. And there was a variety of employment-related motivations. For example, several viewed studying as a vehicle to get back into the job market. Others were trying to actually improve their opportunities in their current job. The next slide shows that about the second theme about studying with the OU. Interestingly, the OU had been recommended to the vast majority of students, and we'd been chosen unanimously in preference to other universities because of the flexibility we afford student carers in order to help them balance caring and studying, our reputation for helping carers, and our open access policy. And the carers saw the OU as being pivotal in meeting their expectations for personal growth and development. And where they were a bit more negative, it was about the loneliness of OU study, having to work in groups, and the timing of assignments, for example, in school holidays, which obviously put more pressure on them. The third theme was about caring and study. They talked about many positive aspects of caring, that it helped them develop specific skills, qualities, some of which were useful in the workplace. It was rewarding and emotionally satisfying, and it actually made them be more focused and organised. But they did talk also about the pressures of caring and studying, and this was particularly the problem in lockdown. They talked about the unpredictable nature of care, how it's a constant juggle in terms of their time. But interestingly, they actually emphasised that caring had primacy in their lives. Other things could wait, but caring had to be put first, and that did affect the time they could give to studying, which links to the next point, that they actually found it hard to find or plan time for interrupted study, and they often felt stressed because they got behind with reading and couldn't submit their assignments on time, felt really tired, and some talked about how they'd come close to giving up studying. But they did show that they had developed various strategies to help them manage studying and caring. They talked about learning to go with the flow and replanning when study time dissipates. They worked around their caring responsibilities, for example, when the cared for person was asleep or at school. They used very careful time management techniques, like made use of short periods of time available, that's breaks at work or bus journey, train journey. They tried to get a bit ahead of the game so they could catch up if they got behind. They strategically planned when they took time off work to manage their study. And quite a few talked about how they set clear boundaries, particularly with the person that they cared for, about what was possible, and managing their expectations. You know, I do need an hour now and I won't be able to give you attention, for example. And all of them talked about how the invaluable support that they got from their immediate and wider family, friends and community support, that they couldn't actually do without it. Then the fifth slide was about OU carer support. And we found that they were really thought that the support they'd had from the SSTs and from the ALs was excellent and was always needed if there. But interestingly, not all students had disclosed their caring responsibilities. And this was mainly because they didn't actually see themselves as carers, which is a major problem with carers, that they don't necessarily self-identify. And they emphasised the importance of the AL role. And in this, we tried to tease out who were the best tutors, not as individuals, but what did the best tutors do? And they identified that the best tutors actually had been proactive in their contact with the students, and they clarified their role and how their accessibility, and they'd established clear expectations for students. They told them about the support for carers within the OU. They answered emails promptly, and they responded appropriately and supported them when they experienced challenges. And this last slide is sort of summing up and sort of talking about what we found in the study overall, and includes some recommendations for improving OU carer support. And significantly, the findings showed that the importance of the OU support students had received in helping them to successfully cope with studying. and also how well the OU suits learning needs, and that we do support care as well. That was obvious from the earlier slide that I showed you, and that the OU's reputation as the university of choice for carers. But as I said, we carried out this study in order to try and improve the already good support that we do provide. And I've listed some recommendations here that we're currently working on as well. Chris Kubiak and myself are talking to different people across the university, and we made some progress so far. Because carers have limited time available and they need to manage crises in their lives, it may require that they need additional time without having to go through the associated bureaucratic and regulatory barriers. For example, it's suggested we could move to no evidence deferrals for carers, and they can apply for special circumstances, remove the number of times extensions longer than 8 days can be awarded without contacting the staff tutor, those sort of rules that we have. Claire referred to some of the suggestions in her opening comments about changes to module design that we made to help carers. I know some modules do have some features like this already, but these are just what came out from the study. It's
just 2 minutes, Mary.
Yeah, thank you. A minimum of 2 week-long catch-up assessment weeks, retention of choice in tutorial times, recording of sessions, and unless module learning outcomes, regulatory bodies forbid it, removal of compulsory thresholded in-person exams and pass-fail assignments, and early starts so people can get ahead, and rapid reading lists so they can use a rapid reading list if they're pressurised. It also suggested increasing AL and SST support, and we've looked into how the carer marker on the student record can actually be available to associate lecturers and SST staff, and that is actually in the process of happening, so they know in advance if they're speaking to somebody who is a carer and they can be proactive in their support. And we're also working towards having carer champions in SSTs who have experience of dealing with students who students can be asked to speak to. More peer support for student carers, and for example, a university online support group. And obviously we need to improve carer declaration rates if we're going to help them. So some of the suggestions that came out were around caring experience, promotion of caring experience stories, carer passports, that kind of thing. But lastly, we need to be proud of what we do for carers and promote the OU's ongoing commitment and pioneering approach to helping carers access and succeed in education. Many other HEIs don't have such a commitment and well-developed policies thus, and strategies for supporting carers. So we feel we can use these findings from both these projects to continue to be leaders in this field. Thank you.